And now, to close our program today, please put your hands together for our next guest, Utah Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson.
Good morning.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Great to be with you here today. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for inviting me.
So you've been able to listen to some of our conversations this morning, and so I'll be wanting to get some of your reaction from those conversations. But first, an audience participation moment. Raise your hand if you've noticed your electricity bill going up in the last few years. Okay, so most hands. Lieutenant Governor, what's your reaction to that? And what are you with the Cox administration doing to lower prices as this electricity growth continues?
Well, we all know that prices are due to supply and demand. There's been a lot more demand lately on energy as we've electrified everything, especially recently as AI has come online. That has really put, and these big data centers, it's really put a high demand on energy, which of course has a tendency to increase prices. So what we're doing is we're making sure, first of all, that we're doing everything we can to protect our ratepayers. And we're also investing in a lot of different ways in making sure that we produce more energy.
So we talked a little bit about Operation Gigawatt. It's been about a little bit over a year since your administration announced that. How is it going, and what are some challenges that you've run into?
Well, it's going well. It's kind of an all-hands-on-deck situation when it comes to Operation Gigawatt. You know, Utah has always been a net producer of energy. And it's been a little bit hard for us to recognize that we're kind of running into facing an energy deficit if we don't quickly move. We're in all of the above energy production state. We don't pick and choose favorites. We want anything that's going to be clean and reliable. And we also really need to focus on baseload energy. So we're working to get, we do have coal and natural gas, which is wonderfully reliable baseload energy, dispatchable 24/7, but we're going to be losing about 67% of our baseload energy in the coming years, in the next 20 years.
What's causing that?
Well, it's getting harder to keep coal plants open, right?
Getting more expensive.
Getting more expensive. It's hard for them to get loans. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of challenges there. So 67% of that's coming offline. We're only replacing about 16% of it with baseload energy. So we really need to invest in baseload energy. That's why geothermal is so exciting and important. We've got, of course, there's a place for renewables, solar and wind, but we've got to have better battery storage capacity. And of course, nuclear is just a huge part of this.
Yeah, we actually, in our prior conversations, we haven't dipped into battery storage, which is kind of shocking. So thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for bringing that up. We've talked a little bit about nuclear power here, including advanced. I understand that earlier this year, you led a delegation to the United Kingdom, which included Chris Parker, actually one of our other guests, to learn more about advanced nuclear power. What did you learn on that trip? And can you give us a sense of what's underway here in Utah to build some SMRs, small modular reactors, and other types of advanced nuclear power?
Yeah, Utah has always been part of the nuclear pipeline, the supply chain, right? We've got the only processing mill, uranium processing mill in the United States. We've had mining here. We've got Western Zirconium that produces the cladding for nuclear fuel rods. And so we have been part of that pipeline, but we've never actually produced nuclear energy here. We need to. What we learned when we went to the United Kingdom is that we're going to really have to, it's not going to happen by itself. We're going to have to focus, be very intentional. I think we changed some of our strategies based on what we found in the United Kingdom, recognizing that we need to do more. We need to better help with site identification and site preparation for companies. And now we do have companies, several of them, that are looking at places here in Utah to start producing advanced nuclear technology.
You said it won't happen by itself. Are you kind of subtly implying that the federal government needs to do more, whether that's loan guarantees and grants and streamlined permitting. I think we just heard from Senator Curtis and his support. What can people like him do to make it easier?
We need all of that. What I mean by it's not going to happen by itself is it's so expensive at first that the market's not going to just do it on its own. Like, government's going to have to make some investments, we're going to have to work with the federal government on permitting, on some of these investments, on regulations, especially with the small modular reactors. These are not like the big gigawatt facilities that the Homer Simpson thing. It's not that. It's not a bespoke gigawatt facility. These small modular reactors, you can build a lot of them and they can be the same. But the first one or two are expensive. And then after that, you scale it, but we need to make sure that we're working with our regulators, state and federal regulators, maybe even internationally, having a cohort of regulators that if a SMR is produced in the United Kingdom, can we also get it to be permitted here in the United States? Or, is there some sharing of standards?
And speaking of cost, there's a lot of concerns and challenges with nuclear power over the last 20 years. Cost is a big one. Lingering concerns about safety are certainly another big one. I think The Simpsons did no favors to the nuclear energy industry. Pop culture has a huge impact on society's views on so many things. But one interesting comment to bring into this conversation, what Senator Curtis said about the potential for AI companies and primarily the hyperscalers. They're reopening nuclear power plants. And I understand TerraPower is looking at an advanced nuclear energy company, is looking at a site here in Utah. I spoke recently with the head of TerraPower, Chris Levesque, at another Axios Live event, in fact, where he said every single one of his deals here in the United States is tied to AI. So do you think that the AI industry can kind of bootstrap these more expensive technologies and shield the people in this room from these higher costs?
100%, yes, definitely. And the challenge with the AI and the real heavy users is, what does that put on our demand, right? It increases prices for everybody. So having the ability to produce electricity off-grid for some of these big, heavy users is a really good idea. And then, they can help fund those first ones and lower the price for the next.
So it sounds like a great idea. What we heard from Sarah earlier, that it's something we're talking about, but it hasn't really happened yet. So my question for you is do you think there needs to be a law, either a state law or a federal law, to mandate these companies do this? Because in my conversations off the record with these hyperscalers, they don't love the fact that there's this target on them for increasing prices.
Of course not.
Yeah, so do you think there needs to be a law that mandates some of this?
I'll leave that to the lawmakers. I used to be one here in Utah, I'm not anymore, so maybe, who knows?
Well, it's certainly an interesting one that I will be following closely. I wanted to shift to coal. We've talked earlier that the state law, speaking of laws, that the state passed a law recently that was mandating keeping some coal plants open for reliability and affordability reasons. A question I asked the senator that I'll ask you as well, do you think those types of laws are necessary anymore when coal is actually becoming more expensive to operate?
Well, our state certainly thought they were necessary, otherwise it wouldn't have passed and the governor wouldn't have signed it. So we can't reduce our baseload energy before we're ready with other baseload energy to replace it. And I think that's the big concern. I think it's not healthy or not good to say we don't like solar and we don't like wind and we don't want to focus on those, we want to focus on these others. I think we need to focus on everything right now. And while there's a gap between dispatchable energy between coal, getting our geothermal up and going, and nuclear up and going, I think we really need to make sure that we're focusing on everything, but that we're also not offloading dispatchable energy too soon.
You know, that's a really good point because, you know, we say 45% of the state's electricity is still coal, but as I noted earlier, that's actually down from 75% over the last 15, 20, 25 years, which is a huge decrease. So we're sort of in the middle of this slide of coal going down. How do you see the electricity mix? Like if you could have a crystal ball and predict what the electricity mix might be in another 25 years, say after Sarah's predecessor retires in another 25 years, what would be sort of the ideal electricity mix?
Well, I don't know about percentages, but certainly a lot more geothermal and definitely a lot of nuclear.
So let's talk a little bit more about geothermal, because I know there's a lot of folks in the audience that are interested in that topic, and we heard from both Sarah and the senator about its importance. What is the state administration doing to help incentivize this technology, or does it need incentives?
Yeah, I mean, it has needed some incentives. We've got the Forge project that's being helped out by the federal government. It's incredible technology. We've signed a memorandum of understanding with Iceland. We're working with lots of different, on a kind of subnational levels, working with other countries on these technologies to make sure that we're not only sharing what we've learned, but we're learning from others that have tapped into these resources as well. I think geothermal is just a really exciting development. Our advanced and enhanced geothermal technologies that we're deploying here in Utah are, I think, the way of the future for us.
So I want to ask about natural gas. So now natural gas is one of the big reasons actually that US greenhouse gas emissions have gone down in recent years, because it's so much cleaner than coal. But it is still a fossil fuel, and its primary component is methane, so it's also a contributor to climate change over the long term. From an affordability perspective, it's been recently more affordable, but it's very volatile. So you, Lieutenant Governor, how do you see natural gas filling some of these baseload power needs while also shielding consumers, not only from the emissions impact with methane, but also the volatility in prices?
Well, I think natural gas is a really important component of our energy portfolio right now. I don't see that diminishing anytime soon. Like I said, we're not an either or, we're a more. We're just more of everything right now. And I think when we get these other clean, dispatchable energy sources really moving, markets will be able to equalize out, you know, which energy sources are good, which ones are cheaper and cleaner. And I think the market will identify those cleaner energy sources eventually as the cheaper ones that people want to use.
You know, my prep for this, for these conversations, you know, people really did tell me, you know, Utah has it all, and we're a pretty pragmatic state, is what I heard while I was preparing for this. Lieutenant Governor, I would love for you to reflect on what Senator Curtis said about his efforts to engage fellow conservatives on climate change. How does climate change come up in your conversations with constituents, and do you see sort of a unique pragmatism here in this state?
I think the unique pragmatism of Utah is, yeah, there's a kind of a knee-jerk reaction that either side will have to certain words or phrases, right? But we all agree that we want to protect our environment for the future, that we want to breathe clean air, we want clean water, we don't want to waste our resources. I think part of the problem that I've heard Senator Curtis articulate so well is that too often certain terms have become politicized to achieve certain particular policy objectives that might be distasteful to the other side, right? Instead of it being pragmatic, it's political. And I think when conservatives hear the word climate change, sometimes they think scarcity, and I'm going to be told that I can't drive a car, and that I have to keep my house cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and that scarcity mindset is what comes to mind, unfortunately. And I think what Senator Curtis is doing so well is helping everybody understand that we can have an attitude of abundance. We can say we're going to have more clean energy, and in the meantime, this helps our environment, and it helps make sure that our environment is protected for the future. We all want these things, conservatives, Democrats, everybody wants these things, but we just talk about them in different ways.
In our final moments together, we are now pivoting to what is our final lightning round. Are you ready, Lieutenant Governor?
I don't know.
Okay. You might see some ones from the prior conversations, but not all of them are the same because we want to keep things interesting around here. So, would you rather spend a day in a data center or an underground coal mine?
Oh my gosh, a coal mine, 100%.
It's a
Already done it, yeah.
It's a fast. I've been in an underground coal mine. Nothing has ever impacted me.
I've been in both. Data centers are boring. Who'd want to spend a day in a data center?
See, point one for coal mines. Would you rather trust AI to run the government or financial markets?
Pass.
I mean, it would have probably kept the government open if it was AI. So, would you rather live forever in Utah summer or winter?
Summer.
Well, there it goes again. Would you rather change the past or see the future?
Future.
Well, with that, thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for your conversation.